Alright, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for My Hero Academia. And guys, this is happening.
Yeah.
This is the climax episode.
Right.
Season
Episode
2, 17.
Yeah.
And this means the fight between Stain, Deku, Ida, and Todoroki might be resolved.
Yeah.
And I am terrified to think about how they're going to resolve it. Because Stain could lose.
He could.
Or he could really injure at least one of them and make a quick escape.
Right. Yes. And he's already mentally shaken Ida quite a lot.
Yeah.
So even if it ends here, there's going to be...
Right. Ida needs to pull himself out of this, out of this funk, get back into action and make stuff happen.
That's right.
And Todoroki needs to continue his flawless streak of not getting paralyzed so far.
Right.
Because I think if he goes down, it's over. The fight is over.
Ida and Deku together are not enough to stop Stain.
I would say they would be close to enough. But Todoroki and the two of them tips it completely in their scale, in their favor.
Right. Yeah.
So Stain also be interesting to see if he starts getting fatigued by this, because we haven't seen him ever really fight, so we don't know if he has the stamina to keep going in a long, drawn-out fight with three people.
And that is something that's really cool to see when you see those drawn-out fights where they actually do get tired and it, devolves into just like a slugfest or, whatever.
Yeah, I think that more of that has a really high possibility, considering he has that kind of assassin vigilante kind of style of one-on-one hitting hard, fast, and then leaving.
Right, and at the very least, he is cutting up some of the good guys, so they're not going to be able to fight at the same capacity as they were at the start,
for sure. Yeah. All right, let's get into this episode and see what happens. Whoa. Okay. So, are we supposed to read into that at all? Because it almost seemed like he was pseudo-paralyzing all of them with just his words.
Right.
Maybe that's more of the effect than actually, his quirk.
Yeah.
But the fact that there was some blood interaction involved because he was wounded and other stuff, is there a possibility that that's the final stage of his quirk just being hinted at?
I have no clue. So they brought up some good points that as his quirk is right now, it's really scary one-on-one, but in groups,
it's relatively
weak. It can be he's not unstoppable, right?
Yeah.
But that I have no grid for this. I have no idea what they're doing here.
I think what it was is Stain is so wrapped up in his beliefs that nothing can stop him. It's the idea that he was actually probably unconscious or basically sleepwalking that whole time. And he used the last bit of energy to save Deku because he's like, I will take back what it means to be a hero. And he stabs the Nobu and he's like,
that was so amazing.
Frustration. Then he goes and turns to all of them and he's like, what are you looking at, you fakes?
Right.
But the fact that he called out Endeavor specifically and then the mask came off and they showed maybe it was a burn mark, but it was the crown of his nose here, and his nose was effectively gone.
Right, I think maybe it had been burned away.
Maybe it had been burned away, and Endeavor was the one that did it.
Right.
Also, he said, I wanted to take back what it means to be a hero. I'm really going into... No, I agree too, but I think that's heavily foreshadowing that he was a hero at one point.
Yes, absolutely. After this, I would say it can easily be confirmed, and here's my prediction. Endeavor burned him, right? And it was something that Endeavor did basically because he was in the way, or whatever, something like that. And he basically, and since Endeavor was the number 2 hero, he was the one that was the most praised other than All Might, right? Okay. So that's where his whole quest began, because he saw that's messed up, that guy's messed up, and he's getting praised by all the other heroes. All Might, and then he basically looked at the one above Endeavor, All Might. He's the only one that seems to be a real hero.
See, I don't want to immediately reject your idea. I think that's a yes, and I would say the bigger thing would be that something really, really unjust happened to him.
Right. Yes.
And it's kind of a stereotypical vigilante origin story, is they have a horrible thing happen to them, and then it shapes them into their, interesting worldview, and then they go on their quest for whatever. But Stain having the idea that he would take it back it gives that whole thing like he feels like he's the protagonist, he's the only one who's the hero right now, and maybe he's looking for others, but he wouldn't ever be willing to share the burden with anyone else, so he's taking it upon himself to be this harbinger of judgment for the heroes, because he doesn't believe that people can change.
Right, he doesn't believe in redemption.
He doesn't believe in redemption. So Ida can walk a crooked path towards being a hero and make little strays here and there, left and to the right. But that's still moving forward. Right. And I think that's a very, like we said, that's a very big flaw in his ideology.
Right.
People can change. In fact, actually, Stain, by your own admission, you have to believe people can change. Otherwise, you have to kill literally every single fake hero until people change. So I think it's a little bit inconsistent. Maybe his rage and his hatred blinds him too much to his own ideology's logic.
Right.
Because he actually does change things. And that's the point, is that it's maybe a little bit out of the wrong reasons for people to change. They're scared of him.
Yeah.
But he is affecting some change at some level.
I love what you said about him being blinded by his own anger and rage, because that makes it an even better parallel with how Ida was when he confronted him.
Yes. I thought that he would understand this, actually, because...
Well, and maybe he did, and that's why he said, like, hold on a second there. Right now you should be trying to save this guy. Choose your words carefully, you know.
Right. I think that Stain understands Ida's position because he originally was a vengeance-type character.
Right.
And then he became something else once he found the purpose of becoming a changer of society.
Yeah, it's sort of like he took his vengeance to the next level.
Right. He's now projecting out the injustice upon him probably to all of Hero Society, because here the Society of Heroes created the incident that would have led to the injustice being done to him.
Sure.
But it's interesting because if he was a hero, I wonder if this happened while he was a hero and then he got kicked out because of something he did immediately after, or if he left Hero Society, disappeared, and then came back a lot later with all this training and stuff. It actually seems like he needs more story. Because I don't think they need to give him story, but I think he needs more story.
They would be missing a punch if they didn't give him story.
Right. I just think about how much this is kind of that school kind of student story. Stain he doesn't really fit perfectly into that mold for storytelling. So doing a backstory on Stain would be a bit out of nowhere if there wasn't someone that knew his backstory.
Now here's a
no one should know his backstory, really.
Right. Now here's a crazy theory though, and it's probably not, good, but what if Endeavor and All Might were in the same UA Sports Festival tournament deal, right?
Right.
I think they said that at some point, and All Might won. Okay. What if Stain was one of the people that fought Endeavor?
And he got burned in the face by it.
And he got burned in the face by it,
Maybe it was like after the match was over, Endeavor kind of stepped on him.
Sure. Or I was going to say, even if it was in the match, and basically he saw all the people cheering as Endeavor basically burned him, and even though maybe it didn't kill him, even though he was sort of saved from it,
a good idea.
He was still mutilated, and that didn't change,
He has a past with Endeavor.
Right.
And maybe that's actually a thing to where they'll bring it up later, and it'll be like, oh, Endeavor has a skeleton in his closet.
Right.
He did something really awful to... No, like specifically to Stain.
Sure.
He did something awful to him, and that'll get brought up maybe when... Because Stain has to be done now. He's not going to randomly get out of this now.
Yeah, I don't...
I don't know what that was.
But what was that?
But now that we've seen that, it would be interesting if they showed what a max level security prison is for superpowered court people, because then we might get a tie into it's like, you don't deserve this cell. This cell was occupied by All Might's great rival, and now we're giving it to you, or something like that. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
That would be cool.
We'd be like, oh, we get him put into this super cell, and you find out that this cell was designed for someone a lot stronger
than you. Yeah,
I get that reference.
Now, do you think that when they mentioned that basically one of Stain's broken ribs punctured his lung, do you think that basically what they were trying to insinuate is that caused him to cough up some blood and he ended up licking his own blood?
Well,
and that paralyzed him?
Well, yes, but I also think that that's a potential hinting at the next stage evolution of his quirk, in that
if he tastes his own blood, then it affects him.
He can grow his quirk strength by the more blood he tastes, but specifically his blood actually gives him some kind of
crazy power over
I think
people.
that's probably one of the dumbest theories with no foundation I've ever given.
Because it probably was just
something that knocked him unconscious because of the pain. But then he would have fallen over. So I think it's more of just for effect.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff in there that didn't seem to make sense. So
right, we'll have to rewatch this episode.
Well, yeah, I'll rewatch it, but there were parts where his eyes were blank white before he made his little talk. So I get the feeling he was more basically unconscious. Mm-hmm. And the effect of it is that even while unconscious, he and his soul and his spirit, they knew what it wanted. And it's like, I'm going to destroy all you fakes. Come at me. And they're either paralyzed with fear or pseudo-paralyzed a little bit by just his quirk, maybe.
Yeah.
But, that was chilling. Also, the Endeavor, almost MVP award for just showing up out of nowhere and handing the Nomus on a silver platter.
That was fantastic.
He knew what to do.
Yeah, and I loved the fact that he wasn't just blasting fire. He was doing different kind of very martial looking things.
Very controlled.
Exactly. Yes, because with how he's been set up so far,
right?
It's just I could see them possibly having gone the route of just him being like, "Oh, I am bad Endeavor. I pretend to be a hero. Yeah, blah, I will blast things with fire." But no. This was very precise and but very powerful. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, he is the number 2 hero. That's right.
Exactly, and it's one of those things where we could easily go, oh, he's an abusive asshole of a father, so he's obviously, a dick when it comes to fighting and everything like that. It's like, no, he knows the system. He knows how to play the game of being recognized for being a hero. He's like, I go and I kill villains.
Right.
I don't I don't have to do a project. I come in here, I'm like, you're dead.
Right.
He just comes in and just blaze blue flames. He went all Azula on it, but instead of just like blasting, he held him in place.
Right. And just and cooked that very specific part of it.
Yeah, crystallized him.
Yeah.
He's like, carbonized cells don't regenerate. Yeah. It's like one of those, 80s action hero one-liners after they have a big explosion. He's like, carbonized cells don't regenerate. And then he just walks on and the body just crumples to the ground.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if that logic works since they're already breaking the laws of physics, but,
but it was awesome. It was cool.
And then freaking climbing, or no, he was just running along the side of the building.
As he melted it to make it, have little step hooks for him to get into it.
That was awesome. And then
we thought he was going to fly all
I thought he
Iron Man style.
Yeah, but I guess that would be taking the Airbender references a bit too much.
A bit too much.
Yeah. And then that freaking fire spear was awesome.
Yeah, he launches himself from the side of the building in midair, throws a lance of fire, pierces its head through the eye.
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of had the missing eye, and then it went down to pick up Deku. So I think at that moment, Shigaraki was like, I want something out of this. Go get Deku or something.
Sure.
Ooh, knocked the microphone there.
Oh. Yeah.
And when he went for Deku and Stain licked the blood on the hero's face, I was confused. I didn't immediately figure out that it was the Nomu. I was like, oh crap, he's
going to turn on them.
He's going to use this situation to get out of here.
Right. But that was so much better.
He freed Deku.
Yep.
Because in that moment, he prioritized the saving of one good hero over really his opportunity to escape. I don't think he would have been able to escape because Endeavor was there.
Right.
But
unless they were maybe just
he didn't even want to try.
Right. He didn't even want to try because you could argue that with the distraction of Deku being taken up into the sky by the Nomu,
they would have to choose.
Yeah. They might not have noticed immediately.
Sure.
It could have taken them a second or two, and then he would have maybe had a lead on him. But,
right. So
so
yeah, but that's another good point. Who could have saved Deku?
that's Gran Torino, maybe, but he would have had
But he
to
made
act
that
like
point.
right then.
He made that point. He said, if he gets too high, I can't use my quirk. And he was already really far away.
Right.
So
he would have had to like jump on the buildings, and then maybe he could have.
yeah, but then he'll fall, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And Gran Torino, we know he can launch himself down towards the ground, not really be ruined by gravity because he'll bounce up again and kind of cushion the fall. But we haven't seen him just free fall ever and use his quirk in midair off of no surface. You notice that?
Right.
He usually launches when he hits a surface. He hits the surface hard and then bounces off it again with his jet leg feet quirk.
Right.
But Endeavor might have been able to shoot one of those like big fireball things at it.
Who knows?
But no, he probably would have missed at least once or twice before it getting farther away.
Oh, that was so good.
They ended the fight too with Stain in a way that involved all three people.
Yes.
But Ida took at least 2 really big hits right before the fight ended. And, And you know, it's funny. Given the stuff that happened in the fight, the thing that actually stopped Stain in the end when they showed the rib puncturing his lung, that was Ida's big kick against his gut at the end.
That's true.
Right before Todoroki torched him, which is basically what knocked him out.
Right.
Because he wasn't trying to incinerate him, you know.
Right,
he was basically saying like, all right, flash stun, and then massive amounts of heat, oxygen disappears.
Right. And then, of course, the pain from, being enveloped in flame for
the pain too
a second.
But one of the effects of getting, that instant kind of application of fire is fire consumes oxygen.
Right, so it just sucks the oxygen right out of your lungs.
If he had gotten kicked in the lungs, essentially, all the air comes out of him. He goes to inhale,
and there's nothing.
Out.
Yep.
Also the pain and the hit. But that was Ida's kick. That was Ida's kick. That was
and that was awesome that they had that happen. And okay, now, but just because this is still like blowing my mind a bit, how much of what they did was just special effects to show Stain being awesome, and how much of it was something that was actually physically present that the others saw?
Are you talking about the
like
effect
the eyes up above Stain and the energy and everything?
Right. So I'm imagining that when we get into the next episode, the heroes will kind of have their debrief talk.
Sure.
And when they do that, we will hear like what was that like when. Did you feel that when Stain,
Right.
They're going to need to talk about that. And if they don't really talk about details,
then it probably was just a special effect.
Just a special effect. Because they did something like that earlier on in the fight in the beginning of the episode where there was that red-black effect behind him.
That was fantastic.
And I think that it's an example of something I've seen in a lot of shows where it's like their aura, their will, they're basically their... I would say will is actually a pretty good description for it. It's their incredible desire to have this thing happen radiates out as this physical image for us as the audience.
Yes.
Not really for the characters.
Yeah. But they just went so over the top with it. It's like, is that something that's really happening?
Well, they also had the effect of showing the lines around the people when they were like not moving.
Right.
So that made it seem like those were the effects of his quirk. But when his quirk actually worked, it showed this weird silhouette with like white outlines and like a pink orange kind of...
Oh, interesting.
Like a pink red orange kind of ting. The whole screen flashes and then it shows a white outline of them, basically to show that they're unable to move.
Yeah.
So this was something different.
Probably.
Yeah.
Hopefully, otherwise Stain could be a real problem. So
wow. So now, in the span of 2 or 3 episodes, 3 Nomus and Stain got taken down.
That's true.
So if this is kind of the sign of things to come, will Nomus be basically like casual foot soldiers of the enemy?
I hope not. I like that they brought in 3 of them and that they were able to say, like, oh, these are weaker than the other one we sent. And it makes sense that they would be weaker by a fairly large margin, because that's the main reason why they wouldn't have sent them with Shigaraki and Kurogiri to take down All Might.
Right.
Because they basically would have just determined, oh yeah, these ones, they'll be nothing against All Might, so we'll just not bother wasting them.
Yeah, there is also the possibility that they just hadn't made them yet.
Sure.
And with us essentially seeing that these Nomus are really strong in and of themselves against regular heroes.
Right.
I could see it being a thing where these Nomus are essentially all test subjects. They're all trials, and they get to basically figure out, okay, what are good quirks in general to use. Maybe they'll essentially have classifications of Nomus. And they'll start saying, flying Nomus, we need to get more of those. And then we need a couple bruiser Nomus.
Right.
And then we need more fast Nomus, because one of the issues we're seeing is that our Nomus just get outmaneuvered all the time.
Sure.
The big Nomu that fought All Might was very fast.
Yep. Very fast and very strong, and I hope
we see more of those.
Yeah, because I like the fact that they didn't make them just all identical, because it builds up that other Nomu as being like, no, this was a very special one. They aren't maybe sure if they can replicate that exact process. Maybe it's different every time.
Replicating the process, that's another very good point. If they're using, say, 4 people's worth of DNA per Nomu,
sure,
or maybe they use less in these Nomus.
Yeah, who knows?
But basically the material that they use to build these Nomus people, depending on what quirks the people had, depending on how old the people were, how healthy they were, there's going to be this variation on what the actual physical composition of a Nomu will be.
Okay.
And that's kind of cool, because then as an artist, they get to draw all different kinds of Nomus.
Yep.
The only characteristic will be kind of a large muscly body with an exposed brain and eyes.
Yeah.
And the other things will all be variations.
Exactly.
And that's really cool.
Which mean, and they mentioned that they have 3 more. So.
Oh, that's right. When they were when he was talking to the guy on the call, he said, I have 6, so I'll give you 3.
Right.
Okay, so maybe those 3 are still being worked on.
Sure, that's a possibility.
Because I hope they're not basically the same strength as these other 3.
Yeah, and at the same time, it kind of wouldn't make sense of if the other 3 were much stronger than these ones, why he didn't take these ones, or why he just gave him the weak ones. Is it that would have implied that he basically was yeah, they're gonna fail. These ones are expendable or something like that.
Oh, wait a minute. Random theory, but remember how we equated the main bad guy in this to Father from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood?
Yes.
What if the Nomus are stand-ins for the homunculus?
Yes.
But what do the homunculus represent? An aspect of the Father. Okay. What if the Nomus are actually
birthed
representations?
From the Father?
Yeah, but there's a direct biological connection, not like father-son or anything like that, or something like that, but there is something that the Father is essentially giving them that makes them like this.
Now here's an interesting idea. So you just brought that up, and I think that's great. I was kind of thinking of that too.
Yeah. So
how many Nomus have we been introduced to so far? 7. If you include the 3 that weren't allowed to be brought, it's the original Nomu plus 6.
7 deadly sins, like the homunculus.
7 deadly Nomus.
What a coincidence! Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And I was thinking these guys are like homunculus. I was just thinking about Nomus.
They regenerate and everything, and and they even had a fire person.
They're being questioned as to whether or not they're actually human.
Right.
But they are human. They're just something more than human that has their
serve the will of
removed.
Something else.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
right.
I was thinking wait, are they foot soldiers? And then I was like, wait a minute, no, they're given quirks.
Right.
Something is, according to the police guy, I think the scientist guy is weaving in the DNA of these people to give these templates. I think the Nomu are quirks. So does the scientist guy have the ability to essentially, like we predicted in a previous episode, to basically lace someone with the DNA of another to give them a quirk? Or is it that all of these people that they're bringing in had specific quirks, and 4 of them were put in, but only say 2 of the people that were put in actually, you know,
the quirks that came through.
The quirks actually worked out.
Okay.
Because that would be interesting if they'd been actually trying to give like 5 or 6 quirks to them, but the body just can't handle it, even with them being that strong.
Now here's crackpot theory.
Okay.
Since we're making these connections to Full Metal Alchemist with the homunculus and everything, and these are creatures that are scary, that are created by fusing
chimera
people together. So now MHA hasn't killed anybody yet.
That's true.
Even like people that aren't really like side characters, even like just the most tertiary characters. But what if
someone gets captured?
Someone gets captured.
Yep.
And they get turned into a Nomu.
Oh,
that would be amazing. It would be awful. It would suck. It would be terrifying.
Who has an actual quirk that would be desirable to be with a Nomu, though? The Invisible Girl. We actually brought this up.
Yeah. And invisible. But how would they ever be able to capture her?
She just gets naked and runs away. You need someone with infrared vision quirk. And
sure.
They can see the Invisible Girl.
Okay, yeah.
Unless her invisibility like bends and distorts like all different types of energies.
Right.
Like,
yeah. So, If
anything, then they would see this muddled thing. The infrared person would be like, okay, there's a little cloud there, and it's humanish shape. And she's like, ah! And she like runs, and they're like, get her!
Now,
that would be messed up. Also, in a way to make it not as dark and horror, is if it's the Invisible Girl, there's no body.
Right. That's why I think like that would be the worst case scenario, because one, the Invisible Girl's quirk, if it was given to a Nomu, that would be too dang OP, but also it wouldn't have that visually striking like grotesque, just like, what is that? Because we wouldn't be able to see it.
I agree.
But if it was someone like, say, what if Kirishima got taken?
I was thinking of Kirishima, but I was actually like thinking what would be worse? Like way worse is someone like Tokoyami.
Oh dear God.
Like, no, think about it. So Tokoyami has this thing inside him, right? What if...
That would be so cool, too, because then we would get a Nomu that is predatorial, like, at night, specifically.
Well, not only that, he would have this extra thing
that would be following it around,
possessing him.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe the bad guys can actually, like, twist that into their will as well, so it has 2 wills, essentially, within it.
No. Do you know what would be the absolute worst one? Worse than the Invisible Girl? No.
Deku, of course.
No. Aizawa. They never blink either. They don't have eyelids. Like,
and wait a minute.
And it just looks at somebody and they don't have quirk.
Yeah. Wait. If the bad guy has any kind of really OP quirk, right? One of his first targets, if this goes into any kind of war, is Aizawa, because Aizawa can just go on a hit and kill mission, and just end the whole thing if he's sneaky enough,
right?
But if Aizawa's taken out early,
and that would be such a great boss for them to have to beat, because you would have this monster that is constantly canceling out their quirks, right? So it would be like the fight against Stain, right?
Right.
Where it's like all this like CC crowd control stuff, and they're needing to like swarm it and everything with coordination and all that. And it would be awesome, because then you'd get to see all these people with different quirks and abilities and stuff like that just be reduced to 0 against this villain.
That's terrifying. I almost think it can't happen, because story-wise, the good guys just lose. They just lose. In fact, actually, what they would need is they'd need to start getting mechanical and bring in the, support crew people and have them make this like ionized cage or something to just like trap the Nomu in. Otherwise,
but wouldn't that just be terrifying? Like this thing that cannot be stopped. Like,
well, think about it this way: what if they keep having this problem with the Nomus that they can't fully control them?
Right.
Like, they can kind of give them orders and stuff, but then if they give them too many orders, they won't, like, do things without being specifically told to do it. And that creates some problems. So they basically just have this Nomu run amok through everything.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, the Hulk is out there. wrecking stuff. We're in a state of emergency for the whole country.
Right.
And we can't stop it.
That would be so awesome if that happened. I mean, it's not going to happen.
No,
But if it did...
There's 2 characters in this that almost can't die now that I think about it, or they can't really have their quirk be absorbed into a Nomu. The main person who can't die, and we all know who this is Recovery Girl. Recovery Girl is literally keeps this whole story alive.
Although there's probably other people out there that have some kind of healing quirk.
We haven't seen them.
We haven't seen them, so maybe it's like some
super
rare thing.
Yeah, we've already seen about 30 or 40 quirks right now.
That's true.
And none of them have anything to do with healing but her. I would say it's actually close to 40 to 50 quirks right now. And we don't know what all of them are.
And she's old, too, so she's probably been doing this at UA for a very long time.
What if she passes away?
That would...
Like, she just has
dies
a heart
old
attack,
age.
you know? That would be sad. Like, think about it.
That's a good point, because can she actually use her quirk on herself? Like, because...
Yes, I would say yes.
Right, but since she's old enough, like, she probably couldn't use it very, very much.
Right, she has limited stamina, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who they need, is they need someone that has a stamina refill quirk. Someone that comes in and basically goes, are you tired? Is your body, like, running on its physical limits? And he's, like, basically, he drinks caffeine.
And he never sleeps.
And he never sleeps. Yeah. He just passes on his... Oh, my gosh, I just thought of so many sexual jokes for a guy that can pass on stamina. Okay, I won't, I promise. Okay, the parallels and the themes that they were bringing up in the Ida, Deku, Todoroki, and Stain fight were really good, because they even brought in Todoroki understanding where Ida was coming from. And Ida kept wanting them to be, like, kind of removed from the fight because he felt the burden of responsibility for what they were doing. But what I feel like that could be is Ida's projecting a little bit of his own insecurity about not believing he's being a hero right now.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want other people to be a hero for him because he doesn't feel like he deserves it.
Right. But and I loved that they had him use those specific words, even though they didn't necessarily follow it up on as much as I would have liked.
Yeah.
But it's that whole idea that this isn't about deserving or not deserving things. Like,
it's not.
Like,
it's just the right thing to do.
Right. It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not about whether someone deserves to be a hero. No, It's just that you do the right thing when you can.
Yeah.
You know.
It's one of the simplest ways they explained Inganium's whole thing.
Right.
Was he just saw that people that helped other people are the coolest.
Yeah.
He's just like, those people are awesome.
Yep.
And it is like, little kitty, so why are you not one of them?
Yeah, working at a
relief children's center or something. And he's like, oh, come on, dude, you're such a robot. Like, don't take things so literally.
And I loved also that they had Inganium basically not be just like Ida when they were younger, and have Ida still be like that when he's younger.
Right.
And like,
and they're very different people.
Very different people,
yes.
even though, you know, like, physically they do look very similar.
Very similar, yeah.
And I love that. That was just great.
One of the things that I kind of appreciated with that whole thing and the backdrop was also, of course, Ida as a kid still has his own hand
motions. Yes, he has his hand motions. That was amazing.
And he didn't get those from Ingenium.
Nope, those are his own thing.
So you know what? I think that it would be cuter if we found out that it was his thing, but he made it even more so his thing because he took it from someone else who did it marginally, like his father or his mother or something.
Sure. Okay.
And he just does it to the max.
Right. He, like, noticed them doing it just, like, a little bit, and suddenly he starts, like, doing it extremely. Bravo! Yeah,
that part when the Bravo episode where he, like, lifts his hands up and the camera, like, follows his hands up and brings it back down.
That was
great.
Beautiful.
So Ida is okay.
Yes, and
everyone is okay.
Yes.
So, are you at all worried about excessive plot armor in this show? It's something I think has to be brought up.
A little bit, and I kind of hope they kill off somebody. Like.
I think they can do that once they bring in the big bad.
Yeah, that's how they can. Yes, that's how they can make him really be terrifying. Yeah.
Who would be the most obvious but painful death? I think it would be All Might. I don't want it to be All Might.
Yeah, but
I think about all the kids, and I think about all the times that they kind of should have died. And I think it's the point that the kids have a long journey to go together.
Right.
We're not just going to kill them off indiscriminately. We're going to have them struggle and go through stuff and get hurt, but we're not going to see them die.
Well, and also it needs to be, especially when you're in a show like this where you're not going to be killing off a lot of characters, right? Sure. The biggest thing about killing off a character is seeing the reactions of the other characters. Yeah. So based on that, you wouldn't want it to be one of the kids because all of the kids would have a different... Like some kids might not quite care as much. If it was someone like Kirishima, that might hit Bakugo or Deku, or whatever pretty hard. But then, someone like Mineta might just be like, oh, like someone died, but, he didn't really know him.
He didn't deserve that. That's horrible.
Right. But he didn't know him, right? Whereas if it's someone like All Might...
The whole world will mourn.
The whole world will mourn. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll also be able to see it'll be this cool development for All Might because this whole we understand this whole idea of him being the symbol of peace, right? And we've seen how it affects people like Deku and Todoroki and even Bakugo and people like that. But then we'd get to see how each individual person saw him. I have an idea. Okay. What
is how you can kill people without actually killing people, guys. Think about it.
Okay.
This bad guy is a big threat to All Might, like an old enemy or something.
Yeah.
What if All Might and him fight? Okay. He beats All Might. Everyone thinks All Might's dead. All Might fakes his death and goes into hiding for a long time.
Sure.
A long time. And we as the viewers don't know it.
Okay.
But they leave like specific hints to where it's ambiguous enough that he might still be out there.
All right. Okay.
So when All Might comes back, it's kind of this thing of, All Might, it's you. And he's like, no longer. I'm just Toshinori now.
Right.
And it'll be this really heartfelt, hard thing to observe because we've experienced no All Might for maybe like a month of story time or what have you.
And,
that would be really good. I just think that's a way they can kill off someone and have it not really be a way that they killed them off,
Right. And they could even now this I would say is much, much less likely.
Okay.
But they could have All Might fight the main bad guy and he gets beaten or something, right? But he pushes his power so far that it's exhausted, right?
Oh, well,
and then basically
I think that's the obvious one.
Well, right, but if no one else knew that All Might actually had this other form of the scrawny guy, then to the whole world, All Might would be dead, but he could still be, coaching Deku and all that.
Possibly.
But then, of course, it's like, so everyone else but the main character feels the character death, that would kind of fall flat in some
that
areas.
Would be really interesting to see if it actually did work, but I don't see it. I don't see it working. But I definitely think the more obvious thing is that when this whole thing comes to head and the big bad gets, revealed and stuff, All Might, if he's still around as a hero, will probably expend the last of his power
at the very
on
least.
This big threat.
Yeah.
And it would be a nice way to transition to, more of Deku's problems rather than Deku dealing with All Might's problems.
Right.
Which, actually, if you think about it, they're foreshadowing that pretty well because All Might apparently had everything easy with regards to being taught by Gran Torino. Not in that Gran Torino was easy on him, but he figured out his quirk a lot easier than Deku did, even though he was quirkless.
Right.
And
he was probably a lot older, too.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. I don't know if that's really... Yeah. Who knows? You made me lose my train of thought.
Gran Torino didn't go easy on All Might. All Might picked it up easy.
Yeah.
It's
gone.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Now that this is over, where do you think they're going to be going into next? Because the villains...
Recap.
Okay, yes,
they need to
absolutely.
recap, recoup, and relief, and debrief, and all that. I think the other people that weren't there, the other students that weren't there, are going to hear about this.
Like Bakugo and Uraraka. And
they're going to be like, what?
You guys fought Stain?
Yeah, are you guys okay? Like, I heard Ida got hurt, and Ida went for... And Ida's going to come back, and it's going to be this thing of, like, will you guys forgive me? I shouldn't have done what I did. I'm going to take, he's going to, like, take the steps, back towards being a hero again, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And I hope it's not easy.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's That's rough, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just your brother that was taken away. It's essentially the person that you look up to as a hero. Like Deku said, Ingenium is to Ida as All Might is to him.
Right. Yep.
And I think everyone in this show has some kind of relationship like that. They have that one person that they basically look up to and are admired by. All Might is almost everyone's.
Right.
But there's some people that have specific ones that are different, like Shigaraki and his master.
Sure.
Like, that's a twisted version of it, but it
still
is mirrored pretty well.
Or
Ida has his brother.
And then Bakugo has himself.
I think Bakugo actually does look up to All Might somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember him being also quite enamored by All Might at USJ.
Yes, he was like, "Oh wow, yeah, this is
power.
pro
This
hero
is what it actually
level.
looks like."
Yeah,
I think he more of looks at All Might as the benchmark because he wants to be the number one hero, Bakugo.
Right. Yes.
And him saying that means I want to beat All Might. It basically means I will be better than you. And he doesn't take advice from All Might sometimes because it's like, no, I'm better than you. I don't need this right now. And that's a little bit of his own immaturity. But if Ida's little arc is over in maybe the next episode or so, who will get the next focus?
Right. And I'm not sure because
yeah,
Uraraka had a great moment in the tournament. I would
Uraraka
say
could be it.
Uraraka could be it, but I would say they don't necessarily need to because she, like, I would say her part in the tournament, like, while it wasn't as much as say Todoroki's,
it was the most emotional one, other than the Todoroki and
then that
yeah.
So I could see them. I don't know if they'll necessarily do this, but I would love if they turned the focus onto Bakugo actually.
Oh, okay.
Like,
yeah,
that would be pretty cool.
I want some of the side girls to get some
yes,
some
absolutely.
development. I want Sue and Momo in particular.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Momo's been kind of like she's gotten the short end of the stick almost as that being her shtick.
Yeah,
like.
It's kind of disappointing.
It's unfortunate.
I was so excited when we learned about her quirk.
Oh, yeah.
When I heard there was a character that could actually create things with their own body and it just was a matter of their knowledge. That's such an interesting character. Like, what was her life like in order to spend... Like, how much time did she spend developing her quirk?
Oh, yeah, because...
She was just memorizing how to make a sword or a stick, probably, for, like, weeks or something. Watch. Especially if she was 5. What if that's actually why she's kind of socially awkward, is that she's been at home just reading books for years.
She probably went all Ed at like 10 years old and was like, all right, the human body's composed of this.
Well, no, at 5.
Sure.
Because the quirks are revealed at 5 or 4 years old or something.
Yeah.
And if she had at least the knowledge that she could make things, but maybe she didn't know she could make anything, you know, she's like wolfing down tons of food and stuff and reading books. And it's like she's in this like hibernation stage from like 5 to like 15.
Yeah.
And so for 10 years, she's just been like, like learning all the things. I want to see that character's story. I want to see, like, did she have a supportive upbringing? Did she have a proper environment which could foster her quirk? What are her likes, dislikes, insecurities, passions, and motivations, and all that?
Right.
Yeah, like, why did she want to go to UA? Like, what did she have to do to get in by recommendations? Like, all those kinds of things make her, I'd say, as interesting as Todoroki. For me.
I mean, she was classified in the same way as Todoroki. One of the 2 people in class, you know...
was it 2 or 4?
There were 4 total, but 2 in each class.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so she was one of the 2 people in Class A that got in by recommendation. Todoroki was one because Endeavor's his father, and he has the insane quirk and everything.
His quirk is insane.
Yeah, and his quirk is insane. Then there's Momo, whose quirk is also insane.
Insane. And she's intelligent, and unfortunately, I could see her being the character. They're kind of filling that slot in for the ridiculously smart character.
Yeah. Well, but
I want more.
But this is like we're not even through the 2nd season yet. Like there's plenty of time.
Yeah.
And
we're just kind of through the half and a third of the half and a quarter. Like we're through like 2/3 of season 2 right now.
And even though, and I just want to say, even though I know it is unlikely, I am still holding out that we will get some development for Invisible Girl. Because she needs more screen time.
You know who has no development at all? Actually, there's two guys that have less development than every single girl in this entire Class 1A. There's the guy who's big, he's strong.
Oh, yeah.
His name's like... I don't know what his name is. And then there's the rock head guy who just looks like a hippo. I mean, no offense. He just looks weird.
Yeah, they basically...
He doesn't
It looks
talk.
like they have the same quirk, almost, too.
Right. He has some affiliation with, like, nature or something like that.
Right.
And we don't know anything about him.
And
those two?
And he was the one other person
Nothing.
that Tokiyami trusted with the secret of Dark Shadow.
Right. He was
because
the
he never
bait
talks.
for all of their trap tactics, their little ambush tactics when they were in the Squall center.
Right, yeah.
It's interesting. I rewatched season 1 recently with some people, and I noticed some things at USJ that I didn't before with kind of how they were using their quirks.
Mm-hmm.
And Ojiro in particular, I realized was basically solo over there.
Yeah.
And he was doing basically hit and run ninja tactics the whole time against tons of stuff. So it's like, these people are awesome.
Invisible Girl could have been there too.
No, we know that she was with Todoroki in
that's
the
right.
landslide
Yep.
area. And Todoroki's like, I almost froze her.
Sorry.
But I want to know more of Class 1A that we haven't, we know nothing with. Because they could do a nice little overlay of everyone and give them little motivations. Like, what was the show we just watched where they interviewed all the
Hunter x Hunter
people? Yeah, Hunter x Hunter. All you have to do is give a little bit of an interview to each one with a thing of, why did you want to be a hero? And why did you specifically want to go to UA?
Yep.
Like, they could do that. It would take 5 minutes to go through everyone.
Yep.
And we would get... Oh, it would be so good for specifically some of the characters that we don't know much of anything with.
Now, here's something else I want to see. Mm-hmm. I want to see Shinso and Mei replace maybe those two. Like, maybe have those two move out into Class B.
Mineta.
Yeah, or replace
No
Mineta.
offense, Mineta.
But
you and your little grape juice kind of get up are great, but
yeah.
Let's bring on Shinso. Sound off in the comments if you would
Shinso
rather have
Sasageo.
Shinso Sasageo rather than Mineta. Or if you would replace one character in UA with Shinso, who would it be?
Right.
We want to know in the comments.
Yeah. But I mean, Mei was great too. Like, she had a very
Hatsume Mei.
Yeah, she had just such a bubbly personality.
She really wanted to be where she was.
That's true.
That's magnetic. It's passionate. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Just good fight. I want to look at that fight as a whole and really dissect it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when they got into the second episode of the fight where Todoroki shows up, at least I think that's where... Well, it's where most of the fighting actually happens. There was some good stuff that got brought up. And there was a lot of things I could sense. I was like, ooh, And that totally been no reference. Swirling force. I could sense that there was some good things there, and I just needed to slow it down, take pauses here and there, take notes. I could find some really good discussion points in there.
And one of the things I want to point out about that fight, they had it last for a decent amount of time, which was great, even though it didn't feel
the longest one they've ever done thus far.
Yeah, I think so. And it didn't feel like a long time, even though it was just fighting up against one person.
There you go. That's another great discussion point.
And they had, like you were talking about, great points of characters talking in the middle of the fight, but they didn't pause the fight to have them dialogue to each other for a really long time. Like maybe a couple times, but even then it was really short, concise, and to the point, and then they moved on.
Right.
And that was
so rare. That's a gem.
That was so awesome. My gosh. Because if it had just been fighting without that stuff, it would have gotten boring pretty quick. It was a very intense fight, but you need those little bits. The reason they get put into fights is for a reason. People just usually go overboard with them.
Right.
So I was very happy that they handled it well.
Yeah. Also, they had no one explaining the techniques of people as they were happening. I know that's a very common thing, but the closest we got to explaining was Deku trying to figure out his quirk. And Deku used logic. He used his own analysis. He used the data that had been provided for him, and he came up with some logical guesses. And I just want to say, I didn't even think of the blood type option. I thought of the other two. I thought of the other two. The minute the blood type one came up, I'm like, okay, that has to be it because I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's
too obscure for them to just bring it up without being it.
Right, but it's a thing that, like, I know a little bit about blood types, but I don't know enough to where I could confidently say that a quirk's interaction with blood means that blood type affects it that much.
Right.
Because in my dumb, not scientific brain, blood is blood. You know, there's no real difference to it. But someone like Deku, who's maybe studied other heroes that have interactions with blood for their quirks, goes that, you know, blood type actually does change things somewhat. It might not be an inherent weakness, but it could change things. And also props to Stain's quirk. I know he said this in a previous one, but his quirk is pretty imaginative and creative.
Yeah.
It's not some vampire stuff where he drinks it to gain power.
Right.
It's not just cutting people to paralyze them.
Right.
It's the tasting the blood of a person will paralyze them. The only way he's going to taste the blood of someone that paralyzes him is if he's broken their skin in some way, and then he gets the...
Yep. That was
it just created a really terrifying fighting style for him that was engaging.
Also, one of the things along the lines of Deku figuring out Stain's quirk, Ida getting the idea to have Todoroki freeze his jets so that he would cool down it so he could use Reciproc Burst again. That was brilliant, because we'd seen Todoroki do that in the tournament way long time ago.
And he used it to stop his engines from working.
Right. But now he's like, oh, they overheated. Hey, Todoroki, can you freeze them without covering
cool me down, buddy?
yeah. Like that was awesome. It was something that you can follow along with it, and you're like, oh, that's brilliant.
Takes a whole new meaning to having a cold one with the boys.
Yeah. But he didn't spend a lot of time explaining oh, it must have been this thing that caused this to malfunction in the machine, which did blah, 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 which therefore means Todoroki. You know.
Yeah, there wasn't this whole lead up to it. He just went, wait, maybe, and then he goes, Todoroki, can you regulate temperature? And he's like, well, yeah, but I'm not really good with my left side. He's like, no. I just need you to freeze my jets so that they don't, but it doesn't cover them. And he's like, okay, that was it. That whole sequence, I think, took less than 15 seconds.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Now, I just love how efficient this show is.
It is.
They have moments where they'll linger, but it's important because it's hitting the emotional bit.
Yes. Well said.
But when they need to move things along, they don't waste time.
Yeah.
They don't waste time. And so I feel respected as a viewer that they're being efficient like that.
Yeah.
So that's my thing.
So given that they do that, and there's so much time left in Season 2, and they seem to have resolved the stuff with Stain, there doesn't seem to be a new, looming plot point other than the villains.
Right.
So,
I think that's why they're bringing up this whole thing with All Might's potential connection to predecessor, bad guy, rival, which means we're going to get the big direction the whole show's going to go very quickly.
Right, which I'm very excited about.
Stain is the appetizer.
Yeah, and if you think about that, that's so ridiculous, because the stuff we've had so far this season has been so good, but to think of it just as that was just the tasters to tide you over till the main course.
The real thing happens.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, can you reward us any more, My Hero Academia? You spoil us.
Yeah.
You gave us a near perfect tournament arc. You gave us a near perfect side villain to just show up and throw everything into question. And now you're building up to a really terrifying prospect of having a villain that's All Might level of threat.
Right.
Because I was always wondering that. I'm like, what if someone had a mind control quirk and turned All Might against everyone?
Yeah.
And then I thought, wait a minute. All Might has to have someone that's as strong as him get introduced to the story at one point.
Yeah.
And All Might is diminishing, but they're probably not.
Yep.
So, whoa.
That's a great way that they can do it, because they can have All Might fight him once and barely beat him off, but All Might gets weaker from the fight, and they're still just fine.
They're still just fine,
And it's this thing of not to put pressure on you, Deku, but
you have a time limit.
You
need to get better quickly.
I don't think maybe then the next fight they fight him together, and then All Might is basically done after that.
That's actually a good point. I think actually we're gonna start getting to a point where they will have to protect Deku, because think about it. If the villains are smart,
and they've already started targeting Deku.
Well, no, they've started targeting All Might, and now Shigaraki has a bit of a peeve with Deku. He's kind of his pet peeve. But I'll bet the villain knows, if he knows about One for All, that All Might has passed it on to someone.
And eventually Deku will stand out.
Very quickly, I would say he's probably already almost figured it out.
Yeah.
That Deku has it. And if they do, They could try and snuff it out before it gets strong enough to be a threat. That would make
for some amazing action. Mm-hmm. Like, not just action like fights, but just like conflict in the story. Because, okay, here's a crazy thought. What if Deku actually did get captured, and then his friends had to rescue him?
Oh, I love it.
That would be amazing.
I love it.
Because like
write it down, make it happen.
We've seen Bleach, and they did that a bunch in it, and it was its thing. But like doing a reversal where it's the main character that has to get rescued.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And Bakugo's like, oh fine, I guess I'll go rescue him.
Yeah, I guess it'll be a good way to test my abilities, whatever.
It'd actually be really cool because then we could take Uraraka's character in such a way where there's not just a romantic side to it, but she's the one that gets fired up like Deku, and maybe Ida as well, and they go, no guys, we're gonna do this. And they get all of 1A behind them, and they form this like attack squad of 18.
Uraraka sets them up on like a glider that's like just flying in the night sky, like the entire class up there.
Oh, there's so many. Yeah, that Momo made.
Right, exactly.
There's so many things that they got to do as a class together.
Meanwhile, Dark Shadow is like just hovering around, protecting them.
But do you feel like they're actually starting to drop battle lines?
Yes. And I am so excited for that.
So if they draw up battle lines and they keep doing this whole thing of showing everyone's quirk, I think I figured out why they're doing that, actually. Is because they're going to start introducing, like, everyone who will be involved in the war to come kind of thing. And they'll be like, we need you to know what they can do quickly because we're about to show them all doing things in synchronicity, and we can't have you just not knowing. I think it's a little bit lazy, but it's also saying, like, well, we don't want to spend time on exposition, so we're going to chop, and get this going. Okay, this discussion has gone on for a very long time, so we're going to cut it off here. But you guys go check out the link in the description for our Patreon's early access. You can watch the next episode of My Hero Academia right now. Yeah. And also, with that comes the Discord access. You can get on there and chat with us about anime, storytelling, really anything.
Whatever.
We'd love to have you there.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.